Hello and welcome to Americans Learn. My name is Lauren, and today I'm going to be watching a video called Things Americans Do That Confuse the Rest of the World. I love these kinds of videos. I've watched quite a few like differences between America and Britain. I've watched that kind of thing before, often on my own time. So I'm really excited to see this. I hope it's a little bit more inclusive than just like looking at America versus the UK, because a lot of the things I've seen have been in that sort of vein. So I'm really hoping that this is more comprehensive than that. And also I'm just interested to see, it's like, what do I think of as like totally normal that other people like would just be like, no, no, no. So it's like, I know a couple of things from my own life. I had a conversation with a Turkish coworker of mine that was like kind of shocked that one of my roommates is a guy and there is no like, we're not dating or anything. Like that is apparently like something that is not super done, at least in his part of the world. So that was interesting to like kind of have that conversation. So I'm always interested in seeing what I take for granted or what Americans take for granted, and other people don't. So I'm really hoping that I'm going to get some very good information out of this. If you want to see more content like this, make sure that you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to let you know when we put out new stuff. You can also join our Discord. That will also tell you every time that this or any of our other channels puts out new content. So without further ado, let's look at things Americans do that confuse everybody else.
The United States of America is the land of the free, the home of the brave, and also the home to a lot of weird stuff that most other countries don't do. This former British colony has truly grown up to be its own quirky person. The following 10 things tend to confuse non-Americans, and you can find non-natives of the US of A discussing them all across the internet. Number 10. Tipping. America definitely isn't the only country in the world where tipping is a common practice. In fact, if you're curious about what jobs get tipped in what countries, there's a website called whototip.net that breaks down the tipping customs of the world. That's kind of cool. But America is certainly the country where tipping is the most prevalent. In most countries and cultures around the world, tipping is simply an optional charge should you feel your server deserves to be rewarded for their efforts. However, in America, you should always give a tip of around 10 to 20%, especially at restaurants. Tipping is a big part of...
I'm glad he mentioned the 10 to 20, because 10% is fine in certain cases. Things like, if you're just picking up food or something like that, tipping 10% is totally fine. Or just even if you get something like a latte, like just $1, something like that, just something in that nature is totally acceptable. But at a restaurant, 20% is basically the new minimum
of American culture, which seems odd to outsiders. People may dislike tipping, but it's probably here to stay. In America, the unspoken system is that food prices in restaurants are lower than they should be because tips allow the restaurant to pay their waitstaff less. They can then charge you less for food. At least that's what you can try telling your friend the next time he doesn't want to contribute to the tip at a restaurant because he recently saw Reservoir Dogs. While a lot of people argue that tipping is a good thing because it increases the quality of service you receive, this isn't actually true. Cornell University published a study that revealed the real reason people tip, more or less, is basically random, and customers who receive great service tip on average just 1% more than those who don't. Lots of people around the world look at America and ask, why not pay service workers a normal amount of money and just make the food more expensive? Number 9.
See, that is the case too. Like, well, there's certain groups who don't tip well at all. One of those groups is like very rich people. So it's like, as soon as someone hands me a credit card and it's one of those like heavy black Amex cards, I'm like, well, great. I'll be lucky to get 15% from these people. So like, there are certain, it's like, seems super random. And it's just like the people who are going to tip a reasonable amount are the people who are going to tip a reasonable amount regardless, because they are the people who understand that, that a lot of times, A, there was nothing your server could have done, or B, it's like because they're nice people and like they are like, well, they're not getting any money, So the people who are going to tip a good amount of money or reasonable amount of money are the people who are going to regardless. There is not like a hard and fast rule for figuring that out.
Have few vacation days. Americans don't go on vacation as much as the rest of the world does. On
Really?
average, we're given only 12 vacation days by our work, as opposed to Europeans who get between 25 and 30. Perhaps more interesting is the fact that Americans on average only use 10 of their 12 given vacation days, whereas Europeans tend to use all of theirs. I guess Americans just can't bring themselves to leave the office while there's still work to be done. And while it may suggest Europeans are lazy, according to a mounting body of research, it's actually counterproductive not to take a vacation, as breaks help us rejuvenate, increasing our productivity over.
We just get yelled at. Like you try and take a vacation day. I mean, when I try and take days off, like, and I mean, I don't even work 7 days a week anymore, most of the time. But like when I try and take time off, I get like guilted into. I was like, "Whoa, you're not giving." I was like, "I gave you like a month and a half before I'm leaving, and now you're expecting like, or 6 months." I gave them 6 months one time, and they were still mad at me for like not asking first. I was like, "But it's 6 months. You can find someone else to make the coffee." Like. Look, sorry. Just saying, it is proven that vacation days can help. And the fact that Americans aren't taking them, it's a lot of the time, I think, because we are literally guilted into not doing it. Like, and it's celebrated when you have not used your vacation day. Like, it's so backwards.
For time. Not only that, when us Americans do go on vacation, we also travel less internationally than citizens of most other countries. But that may be related to our limited number of vacation days. 12 days just doesn't allow for an international trip as well as 30 does, as the time and cost of travel to international destinations is so great. According to the Department of Commerce, American international travelers spent 42% of the cost of their entire trip simply on the travel to and from their destination.
Yeah, sounds right.
It's then not too surprising that most Americans don't even have a passport. Only 42% of US citizens own a passport, whereas 76% of English citizens do. That means at least 58% of Americans haven't even left the US, as you need a passport to travel. To the rest of the world, this is an odd characteristic of such a prosperous nation. While it's partly due to limited vacation days, it may also be because Americans lack the desire to travel as much as the rest of the world. Number 8. Food preferences. When you go to a restaurant in America, you're probably going to get a lot of food, at least a lot more than most other nations would serve. It's a popular topic of discussion amongst non-Americans online. Many European tourists admit they would frequently just order one item off the menu and share it with another person. America does it big, and for non-Americans, the size options at fast food restaurants perfectly illustrate this. Take a look at this image by a Japanese citizen in 2011, comparing the sizes of McDonald's drinks in America versus Japan. The medium Japanese cup is the exact same size as the small American cup, and the American medium cup is larger than the Japanese large. But McDonald's is on the small size. Here are the small sizes at a number of vendors, showing just how much larger a small cup is in America.
Wow.
While many around the world like to joke about how it proves Americans are fat, the truth is a lot of them take away their leftovers in carry-out boxes to eat throughout the week. Still, Americans...
That's apparently, that's like why restaurants often, that's like the main reason why restaurants often give you big foods, because it's like you get, the whole point is that you take it away. Like, you're supposed to take some home so that you'll have lunch tomorrow. You know, it's supposed to be, it's like it's a thing. It's a thing.
Food is vastly different to food found in the rest of the world. For one, non-Americans are, on the whole, less obsessive about peanut butter. Brian Sternthal,
Really?
a professor of marketing at Northwestern University's Kellogg School of Management, has said that in many parts of the world, peanut butter is regarded as unpalatable American curiosity.
That's interesting. I mean, I think peanut butter, it is an American staple, right? Like, it was created in America, I think. George Washington Carver, wasn't that the thing? But like, honestly, it's okay. Look, y'all, rest of the world, peanut butter is cheap. It has got protein and it's filling. So, especially for people who don't have a lot of money, like college students or people below the poverty, like there's so many people who benefit from just like a scoop of peanut butter. It's like, it's not necessarily the tastiest thing in the world, but it is a fantastic like thing to have in your pantry, because like it's just sometimes you can't afford anything else. I've been there. Like, it's like, all I have is peanut butter. I guess, okay, fine, sure. Peanut butter lollipops is what I'm eating. I mean, I eat a lot of like peanut butter and jelly like roll-ups as well, just because I don't have normal bread most of the time. But like, look, peanut butter is where it's at. I will say you're wrong on this, rest of the world. Peanut butter is good.
For example, according to Statista, Americans eat a kilogram of it per year, compared to 100 grams eaten per person per year in Europe.
Maybe y'all just don't have good peanut butter in Europe. I mean, I've noticed that seems to be the case in a lot of manners. Like you see an American version of a food and then a British version of the food. It's like, well, I know which one I would choose, but I don't know. Maybe that's just because we do put a lot of sugar in it.
10 times the amount Europeans eat. Other American food anomalies that have confused Europeans include comparatively small fruit and vegetable aisles full of fruits and vegetables that will cost you a lot more than they would across the Atlantic, as well as an overabundance of highly processed sweet and salty foods. And
that also might be part of it. Like peanut butter, again, is cheap and it's fairly healthy, and all of our other healthy options are super expensive. That might be another part of it.
So-called cheese that can be sprayed out of a can. Number 7.
Yeah, that's gross.
College sports. In America, college sports are almost as popular as professional sports. In some areas, they're actually more popular.
I was going to say sometimes more.
People will have barbecues outside of stadiums for hours before the games start, paint their faces, and hate on rival academic institutions.
Yeah.
College athletics are taken just as seriously by the fans, who don't care that the players aren't as good as the pros and aren't even getting paid. This may be baffling to our neighbors, but there is an explanation for this American pastime of watching what are literally amateur games. Unlike most fun-sized European countries, America is massive. There are lots of places that just aren't anywhere near a major city where you could go and see a professional team play. Colleges are the next best thing, and there's bound to be one of them nearby at least. College football and basketball also actually predate those sports' professional leagues, so college athletics culture has been around forever. Number 6. Prescription drug commercials.
Oh, yeah.
Non-Americans who travel to the U.S. are often surprised to find that there are advertisements for prescription drugs on regular television.
I wish we didn't have those. I will say like that. Some of these I'm like, I kind of agree with our way of doing things, but other times things like this, yeah, no. Get the ads, especially drug ads, off the television, please, and thank you.
You can't go and buy them from stores, so the commercials urge viewers to ask their doctor about them. In 2016, Kantar Media, a firm that tracks multimedia advertising, reported that nearly 800,000 prescription drug advertisements were aired on television, which was a 65% increase from just 4 years prior. Basically, the reason these commercials don't exist in other countries is because they aren't legal in other countries.
Yeah.
In fact, the only other country where these kinds of commercials exist is New Zealand. The U.S. pharmaceutical industry is huge. It generated $425 billion in 2015. If they're allowed to advertise, of course they're going to. And
Down with Big Pharma. I am against it. Get out of my TV. Get out of here. Get out of my country.
It works. Direct-to-consumer advertised drugs tend to sell better than drugs that aren't, but they're controversial, and it seems the reason America allows them comes down to our free speech protections under the First Amendment. Governments in most countries around the world think they're dangerous, and the research suggests they're not wrong. Even the American Medical Association has called for a ban on them, as these advertisements have been proven by studies to broaden the scope of who gets treated with prescription drugs. They also lead to patients being influenced to take newer, less effective drugs that often cost more. For example, Vioxx, which was later withdrawn as it caused life-threatening side effects such as increasing the risk of heart attack and strokes. Number 5. Soccer. America, of course, isn't the only country that plays soccer, but we are one of the only countries that calls the game you play with your feet soccer and the one you play with your hands football.
That is weird.
We stand with countries like Australia, Korea, South Africa, and Italy in not calling the sport football. Understandably, it confuses most of the world. So, what is the origin of this counterintuitive name? Soccer is an abbreviation of association, which came from association football, the official name for the game. The suffix "er" was added as a common jocular slang term of the time. The reason the name is stuck is because American football developed in the mid-19th century, evolving from the British game of rugby. Back then, rugby was loosely known as football, but it was often called rugby to make the distinction. All these sports were about moving the ball forward, but as the game developed across the pond, Americans developed different rules about how you were allowed to do it and what you could wear. The most popular rule set in England ended up being the one where you can only use your feet. And the most popular rule set in America ended up being the one where you get to smash into each other. Hence why the two totally different sports have the same names in the two countries. Number 4, not including sales tax. Wherever there's a discussion of American sales tax on the internet, you can find non-Americans telling their tales of being shocked at the final price because they didn't realize that sales tax wasn't included. In most countries, the price tag on an item includes the part you have to pay to the government, so they can build roads and other things.
Makes sense.
But not here in the U.S.
You gotta be tricky.
This is because sales tax in America can vary by county. So something could cost a slightly different amount just a mile away. There are also very specific laws about what gets sales taxed. For instance, if you order coffee to go, there will not be sales tax in California, but if you sit down in the cafe and eat a donut, you will have to pay sales tax. Essentially, with all these rules, it becomes difficult to put things on a price tag. Number 3, not using the metric system. The United States of America has no need for universally accepted and logical measurement systems because Thomas Jefferson said so. In 1790, when the metric system was being developed, he simply decided not to bring it to America. So it didn't happen. America, Liberia, and Myanmar are the only countries in the world that use the imperial system. Liberia uses the same units that America does, and Myanmar is a bit of a mess. They use a combination of their own totally unique Burmese measuring units, American imperial units, and metric units. So they may have the distinction of being the only country with a bigger headache when it comes to this than America. But surely now that Thomas Jefferson is long dead, we could just switch over, right? Well, it isn't that simple. It would cost a lot of money to switch over the country's whole infrastructure to the metric system now that the US already uses their own unique imperial system. The closest the US has gotten is that today, in US schools, kids learn about both the imperial and metric systems. So most of us do have a basic understanding of how the metric system works, even if we never really use it.
And like I feel like you have to use it in science class a lot, because everything is in like grams. Yeah. So it's like, I think that in science class you use the metric system a lot, but mostly no. And it just makes things, for me, the most complicated thing obviously comes when it is about, temperature. I will say I get why we use Fahrenheit though. Like I understand why we use Fahrenheit, like because Celsius is all about the freezing or boiling point of water, right? Like I feel like that's something I've been told. Celsius is freezing or boiling point of water. Fahrenheit is about the freezing or boiling point of people. Like it's more, so Fahrenheit specifically is more based on humans themselves and like what is the temperatures that you'll be frozen at or comfortable in. And Celsius is more about water. So I'm like, all right, okay, I see why we use Fahrenheit, but it is complicated and it makes things tricky when you're trying to figure out like how far away something is and like trying to transpose miles and kilometers. And I'm like, all right, great, awesome.
Even if you buy a measuring tape in the US, it will have both imperial and metric units on it. Throughout American history, there have been various attempts to reform the system and switch over, but none have succeeded. It would seem as though Thomas Jefferson's wish for an extra special system shall live on for the foreseeable future. It hasn't come without its consequences though, as this confusion has led to enormous mistakes, like the Mars orbiter that was lost by NASA because of a metric system mix-up. Number 2.
What?
Month before the day. The United States is the only country that, when writing out the date, puts the month before the day, and it seems to extremely aggravate the rest of the world. Most other countries write the day, then the month, then the year.
Which makes
the
sense.
majority of countries and most of Europe and South America do it this way. It seems logical as the units of time are then in order from smallest to largest. Also seemingly logical is how the date is written in China and Japan, which is year, month, day, or largest to smallest. So why do we format time like this?
Yeah, why?
Well, unfortunately, there's no widely accepted answer as to why this is the case. The month-day-year order was used in Britain in the 1800s, but why we chose to keep it when Britain ceased to do so is something of a historical mystery. The best guess is likely that the order reflects how Americans say dates verbally. An American would be more likely to say that it's January 1st more than they would be likely to say the 1st of January.
Yeah, it's
Our
faster.
notation then could simply be a way of writing out what would be the most conversational.
I guess that makes sense. That does make sense then, and in that sort of state, because like a lot of America is like, all right, let's get this done quickly, so it's faster to say January 1 or January 1st as opposed to the 1st of January, which takes like longer. There's a 2 whole extra words in there.
Number 1. Having a drinking age of 21. A 20-year-old European may be in for a shock when they fly to the US and discover that they can no longer legally drink alcohol. While you may already know about this peculiar American practice, what you may not know is why it is the case. In 1984, the US passed a law called the Drinking Age Act. It stated that if a state did not create a minimum drinking age of 21, they would lose up to 10% of their federal highway funding. The states all took the hint and made the drinking age 21. But why 21? Well, America has a long and storied past with alcohol, including prohibition. Lawmakers didn't just pick the number out of a hat. It dates back centuries to Old English common law, which states a person becomes a full adult aged 21, at which age a person could, among other things, vote and become a knight. Still, as shown by this map, the U.S. is...
But we are allowed to vote at 18 and go to war at 18. It's different. Like, you're not we consider everyone to be like an adult at 18, except for the fact that you're not allowed to drink. Like, I mean, and you can't rent a car or something until you're like 25, something like that. But like, look, if you're an adult, you had to wait to drink and become a knight and vote. You had to be 21 for all of those things. Just make it 21 for all of those things then. Like, then there's going to be less of an issue. I mean, it's 21. Anyway, I still hate that you can go to war at 18 and you can't have a drink while you're like, so stupid.
One of just a few developed countries to have a minimum legal drinking age over 18. In fact, in some countries like Belgium and Germany, 16-year-olds are allowed to purchase alcohol. Alcoholic or not, if you order a drink in America, you're probably going to get it with a lot of ice. In most other countries, you just won't see the sheer quantity of ice that you'll get in your American beverage. Granted, you'll often get ice in your drinks in many European countries, but ice-cold beverages are the default option in America. Whereas lots of people from other countries don't have the same preference, and drinks aren't always served with ice. This cultural difference is frequently debated online. It could be because in some countries you shouldn't drink the tap water, which is where that ice came from, and in others it just isn't common to automatically have ice with a meal at a restaurant. So, people of the internet, do you agree with the items on the list? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching.
All right, that was interesting. Okay, I knew some of those things. I knew a lot of them actually, but there are a few things that did kind of startle me to remember that it's not necessarily going to be, common. I knew it, like tipping, obviously, and I guess the metric system too, but I wasn't thinking about, I always forget about food portions being so like small other places. And granted, I have not done a lot of traveling myself. And again, the traveling thing, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting those numbers. But it does make a certain amount of sense. Like, it's harder to get to other nations in America from America than it is from Europe, where it's like you can go to England or France or Italy, like kind of like it's a lot easier to get to another place. Here it's, if you're trying to get across the Atlantic, it's at least a day, like a 12-hour flight at the minimum. So it's like, all right, I get it. I understand why, like, it didn't even occur to me that Americans travel less. And like, I wasn't expecting how many travel days and like vacation time that Europeans get. That's insulting. Again, it doesn't matter to me. I am in the service industry, which means I don't get any vacation days or sick days or paid time off of any kind. So like every time I go on a vacation, which is why a lot of that's another thing too, I think a lot of Americans work more hourly than they do salary based. So like with all of the hourly stuff, A lot of the times it's difficult, or people will work two jobs. If you're working two part-time jobs, you're still not being able, you still don't qualify for a lot of benefits most of the time. So, you end up being kind of screwed in when you try to actually take time off, because you're not getting any money for it. And not only, and like in a gig economy, or if like you're working in service industry, not only are you not like, it's just, it is full stop, you're gonna lose money on it, because you're not gaining, you don't have the paid time off, you don't have the vacation day. So I mean, that's why a lot of times people don't go on vacation. I mean, I moved to Chicago in like 2016, and I went on my first vacation in 2022. Like, I hadn't gone on a vacation, I hadn't missed more than like a weekend. uh I just wasn't, I don't miss work. I try to go, because otherwise I'm like, I'm not getting time, I'm not getting money for that, I don't get paid for it, and it's like actively losing money. And that sucks, especially because with inflation everything is so expensive. But anyway, so yeah, that was interesting. Thank you for watching with me. If there's any other things like that you'd like me to react to, any other, if there's like, especially if there's like YouTubers from other places who discuss this kind of um, topic, I would love to hear from them as well, especially YouTubers not from America. This guy obviously did a lot of research, but I would really be interested in seeing. I really want to know the other perspective, like told from the mouth of that person, if that makes any sense. So, again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.